This episode is brought to you by Gazelle, the all-in-one business management software for piano technicians who want to spend less time juggling calendars and more time on themselves and the work they love. Be sure to check out some of Gazelle's newest resources with more than 8 hours of video lessons on learning aural tuning and tuning ergonomics, skills we as technicians use every day. Whether you are growing your skills or your business, Gazelle will help you save time and wow customers. Visit growwithgazelle.com/ProPTN to learn more. I'm McKinley Coda, and you're listening to the ProPTN Podcast, an interview talk show for piano technicians to tune in to what the pros are talking about from across the industry. If you enjoyed today's episode, show us some love by following us on your podcasting platform and leaving us a review. To learn more about us here at the Professional Piano Technicians Network, visit us at proptn.org. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, McKinley Coda, coming to you from the second annual PIPA trade show in Las Vegas. And today I am thrilled to be joined by Leng Tshua, head of Pearl River USA, as well as Vietnam, Indonesia, and Southeast Asia. Leng, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, McKinley, and thank you very much for inviting us to join your program.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So why don't you get the ball rolling by telling us about your childhood as a piano player and what kind of pianos they typically had back then in Singapore?
Sure. Just a little bit of additional information. I'm actually the global director for Pearl River, so I'm in charge of 112 countries. But it's good to focus on Southeast Asia also. Because I'm from there. I'm from Singapore originally.
Gotcha.
So it's very European prone in the Singapore market because we used to be a colony of the Great Britain. So I grew up with a Seiler piano made in Germany. Back then, British brands were very common over there, like Challenge, like Campbell, Broadwood,
Yeah.
So, and then Royal School's system was very, very popular over there. So almost every kid that goes into piano will also take those exams. Actually, Singapore is one of the highest percentage of piano learners in the world. Out of the population, you're looking at about 65%. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's really, really quite wonderful.
Yeah. So that was a very organic place to start for you then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because my parents play, my aunt play, and I was 2 years old when I asked my dad to teach me piano. I was a weird kid, I sit around and listen to adults playing music, and then my mom said, "Why don't you go out and play?" I said, "No, I'm just sitting here listening," Which I still remember, which is also weird,
Yeah. 2 years old is early, though.
Very early.
I feel like the earliest that kids start over here is usually 4, maybe, but that's early. Yeah.
And you know why it's early and maybe 4 is better is because when you're 2 years old, the bench looks really high. And I took so much time to try to climb up the bench. And my dad was sitting next to me and did not help me, just wait for me to climb up. So part of the lesson is,
learn
how to climb up the bench. Yeah.
Good. You wouldn't get that in a piano book.
No. That's the secret training program.
Gotcha. Okay. So then how did you end up with Pearl River? Where has your career taken you over the years?
Well, I officially started in Seattle in '93 with Sherman Clay. And I was a salesman, and I worked my way up to be store manager. And then I was the director of luxury marketing for the Sherman Clay Group. And then eventually I was invited by Steinway so that I was actually the first private Steinway piano galleries operator based in Tucson, Arizona. That was in 2004. I was also invited to open the first Steinway gallery in Southeast Asia, which is, of course, in Singapore. And they're doing very well today. And then after that, Hamburg, Steinway Hamburg said, "Why don't you come over and run Asia Pacific for us?" So I was running like 12 countries over there.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite an exciting journey.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, I decided to take a different path. At Sherman Clay back in 1995, we did work with Pearl River under one OEM projects, which we have our own Henry F. Miller brand, which was built by Pearl River. And I remember that, and I was thinking, I'm very curious how they become so big in such a short time. Pearl River is the best-selling pianos in the world.
Yeah.
And domestically in China, they take out almost 45% of the market. And worldwide, it's about 32 to 35%. So it's really big.
Yeah.
So I was very curious, and I also know that dealing with their products, they make a lot of OEM projects for all the big brands, Europeans and Americans and all that. And I was like, well, if people trust them, they must be good, and I like to learn more. So I went to visit them, and I have a chance to see Chairman Lee, who's still the chairman of the company today. That was at the NAMM show in 2019. He said, well, our factory is going to take a break during the Chinese New Year. You must come in March. I said, oh, great. You like me to tour? You want me to see the factory? He said, no, you become the global director for me.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
wow.
So that's how it happened. And then I've been there since. Very wonderful. The factory is huge. I mean, the campus, 3.2 million square feet. And then there's a separate lumber yard, about 1 hour drive west of the factory. And that's another 1 million square foot space.
Wow.
So it's huge. And the factory could make up to 1,000 pianos a day.
Oh my God. Those are dizzying numbers.
Yeah,
That's
and then, at the height of the market, we were shipping out 20,000 pianos a month. Yeah. Can you imagine? 20,000 a month.
I cannot. That's a lot. That's a lot to handle.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what it's like working with basically every manufacturer? What does that entail? What have you learned from that?
There are two parts. One is, of course, the technical department. Technicians are really vital to the well-being of the company. So you see really good company, they have a way of managing the technical department. They support in R&D, they support in apprenticeship, they make sure that they retain good people, for the long time. These are really important resources, And then they also manage in a way that they allow technicians to really thrive in their own strength. That means no cookie cutters,
Yeah.
You have to do it that way because that they also inspire each other to do better and come up with more design and make it more efficient and on and on and on. And then there's a longevity in that it can be passed down from one generation to another, you see. And then, of course, on the other side of the scale is the marketing team,
Yeah.
And if you don't have those two working hand in hand, it doesn't work. It could be great design and nobody knows about you because you don't have good marketing team. Or you could have great marketing team and you have a disaster when you sell more because you have really bad technical or poor quality merchandise, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be in sync.
Yeah. Which company has had the best factory training for technicians?
I think overall every company have their uniqueness in that. So I can speak for Pearl River in the sense that if you think of Pearl River, they are typically being typecast as mass-produced. Even today, some people will still think it's a low-end operator because they have that impression from 30, 40 years ago. But in fact, the factory has changed so much. It's not the same as 30, 40 years ago. It has the most modern technical type setup in the factory today because the factory is completed in 2019. It is probably the newest factory in the world.
Wow.
And it has all the CNC, computerized process, automations, you name it, right?
That's huge.
Yeah, that's
very
huge.
Modern.
Yeah. And then they have 3,000 workers working there. They also retain the apprenticeship methodology in terms of training technicians. And one thing that's very good about Pearl River is that they segmentize their workforce. So every division specializes in something and combined together is a very powerful force to be reckoned.
Yeah.
I'll give you one example. You think of tuning, right? Most people think, wow, it's just tuning, no big deal. But actually, in the factory, they tune those people and they really like superhuman,
Yeah.
And when you have somebody like that come to your store, because I have dealers in Hong Kong, which is only an hour by train ride.
Right.
We will take those people to Hong Kong to work and support our dealers. And my dealers say, we have a lot of problem because we have a lot of pianos here and my technicians could only do a few a day and blah, blah, blah. I say, what's the problem? I say, we just have so many that we could not finish the tuning in time and we'll never be able to catch up. I say, how many? We have 10 of them. I said, what? I said, okay, Mr. Lee, my guy from the factory, I said, can you help them? And then we were talking, and pretty soon, Mr. Lee said, is there anything else you want me to do? I say, what do you mean? He said, I finished everything already. And it's before lunch,
That is superhuman.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so
Oh
it's really quite wonderful when you experience that.
Yeah.
And they are good. They don't
Yeah.
do a sloppy job. They're really precise, very fast.
Yeah. So I wanted to know about some of the improvements that you've seen in the Pearl River pianos over the last 20 years. You
Sure.
said they used to be something quite different 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
So what have been some of your favorite improvements that you've seen?
In the 90s, we heard about laminates, blah, blah, blah. And everybody said, oh, don't go for that, this and that. Of course, there were valid reasons back then. Today at Pearl River, we do not do laminates, but we call it all spruce, all right? Basically, it's a 3 layers, a combination of solid spruce. And with the core of the construction is a tapered solid spruce soundboard.
Yeah.
And then on the top and the bottom, there are 2 more layers. And they're very, very thin, but these are solid spruce. And then you combine them together, they become a wonderful, wonderful new soundboard. You know why? You sell to 112 countries, and each country has different climates, right?
Yeah.
You only have one piano. You cannot make 112 soundboard, right?
Yeah.
So in Singapore, which I came from, it's 98% humidity every day. And over there, people don't have central air conditioning.
Yeah.
So the piano is sitting in this really humid environment, and we don't have a problem with that.
Wow.
Nevertheless, this is a very thin construction, right? So it has beautiful sound.
What about the Pearl River 2.0 hammer that the company developed after Steinway bought Renner?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They developed it within a year. There's a story here. Pearl River was actually Renner's biggest customer because for the last, 15 years, Pearl River alone purchased half of Renner's output. And they could never catch up because we demand so much. So because of that, we handle it so often and so frequently, and it's in such large quantities. We're very familiar with the constructions of the Renner hammers, because you handle it all the time. So when the change happened, then Pearl River decided they should really design their own versions. And actually, we should ask all our colleagues here at PIPA today, especially some of the participants, which we brought the Kaiserbett piano here. They have the PL 2.0 hammers.
Okay.
Actually, the Rit Miller as well, and some of the Pearl River as well. We got very wonderful reviews from the Americans here. We actually invited them to handle it, to test it. And a lot of my dealers, like Jeff Tosh from Chicago, Grand Piano House, they were the first one to ship in those pianos, and they love it.
Are there a lot of differences between the two, or do you feel like you've just recreated the original quite faithfully?
I think, to be honest, I say we have even improved it. And it's not me saying it.
Okay.
It's technicians from here.
Okay.
I shall name no names, but,
Well, I've heard that Pearl River is particularly welcoming of feedback, so the company can continuously improve. Can you tell us about any examples of when the company responded positively to criticism and adapted to the needs of stakeholders? Yeah,
overall, I think it's important to understand that in Guangzhou, it is also quite humid over there, even though it's not like Singapore, which Singapore sits on the equator, So Guangzhou still have seasonal change, and it could be quite cold like right now, winter season. But in the summer, it's quite humid. So because when you live in an area for so long, sometimes you get used to the climate. You didn't realize that, right? So one of the criticism for us is that when we make piano, sometimes we do not understand. You have to control the humidity. It's like they will make the parts, and maybe in that factory it's not centrally air conditioned or humidity control at a certain level because they are so used to it. And also, important to say, when they sell those pianos in China and in Southeast Asia, there's never been a problem. It's only when you go to a drier climate after a couple of years, then you see things happen because the woods start to change and all that.
Yeah.
So we took that to heart because we started to receive that, and today they totally changed that.
Yeah.
And the problem solved, So that's one good example. And we welcome that because we need to know, if someone uses it in a certain environment, how quickly does it respond? Is it destabilized? Or even if the piano has no problems, we like to know too. Then we know we got it down.
Yeah,
right?
you're doing it right. Yeah,
So,
exactly. So what were some of the other challenges of marketing a brand new line of pianos to Americans and the rest of the world?
Actually, I have to report to you that I'm very pleased about the reception. People has received us with welcoming attitude and very open-minded, so I applaud them for that and thank them for that as well. But I think it fundamentally is based on two things. One is being really transparent, very honest. The other thing is that you must have really good quality design and quality build. So when I launched the new campaign on behalf of Pearl River Group, which of course comprised of the Kaiserbird, the Ritz Miller, and the Pearl River brands, we are very careful in choosing a certain type of models initially to introduce to a particular market, and it pays off.
Yeah,
It pays off because, like I say, Jeff Tosh from Chicago, when he received the first batch of Kaiserbird, he told me, "Why are you not selling those pianos here? Are you keeping a secret from us?" I said, "No, I said, nobody asked for it, right?
Yeah.
But I have to do it first, right?"
Yeah. Hi there, this is McKinley from the editing room, here to remind you that if you have not already signed up for a ProPTN subscription, you're seriously missing out. Whether you need articles from our Beginner's Corner to help supplement your students' education, or if you're a seasoned tech who wants a refresher on certain specialty skills, ProPTN has got you covered with peer-reviewed editorial content, video demonstrations, and photographed step-by-step instructionals. On top of that, the collection is our online marketplace that is a must for maintaining your tool collection. If you want to try a tuning lever before you buy it, you can check out our rent-a-lever program. If you make and design your own tools, you can sign up to distribute them through the collection. If you're a retiring technician, we can sell your tool collection on consignment. Or you can just go shopping for a whole selection of new and used tools from brands and technicians you trust. So what are you waiting for? Go sign up now and you'll thank me later. Anyways, back to the show. Out of curiosity, when you were talking about being welcoming of feedback, do you yourself have any criticisms or ambitions for Pearl River that you're excited to see happen in the future or that you would like to see happen in the future?
Yes. I think because of the sheer size of the production, sometimes the management is slightly different. But I have to also say that I congratulate Pearl River for picking up those suggestions that, especially in terms of fine-tuning the pianos, checking it for quality issues before they ship it out. They've done a lot in the last 5 years since I arrived. So I'm sort of the troublemaker.
Right.
But so far nobody say, "Hey, why don't you go back to Singapore?" So I guess I'll still stay for now. So,
Okay, good.
And their response is very fast. It's not like they try to rush everything and then everything fall apart.
Yeah.
But they did it very fast, and they can turn around and improve a situation if they were told there's a problem. So this is very, very encouraging and very strong because I've worked with certain other entities that it doesn't matter what you say. It's like, that's how we do it.
Yeah.
Go away.
We can infer.
Yes.
Okay, so I would love to hear from you about the policy changes that have slowed production in China and how you expect them to impact the future Chinese markets.
There are two things going on. The Chinese market is affected because the government policy changed. They took away the school incentives, right?
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Secondly, I also think that because the sheer success of the Chinese market in the last 15 years or 20 years have caused certain neglect in the piano industry, like whether they are aware or not, they're putting all eggs in one basket. Let me explain. Their primary customers are the students' market, and all students take lessons, and the average students in China will stay 15 years. So basically, they don't need to do any other market development because, as I say, if you ship 20,000 a month, do you have time to develop other segment of the market? No, are you kidding?
We got it.
We got it, and I don't even have pianos to ship out. I'm running 3 shifts and working 7 days. What else do you want me to do, right? So I understand that. But in hindsight, when they look back, it's that, piano market is not really just the student market. You have many other segments, right? like here in the States, we market to anyone or everyone or every
Yeah.
corner, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we even think of where we can sell, and sometimes we try to create our own customers by promoting a certain lifestyles or a certain way of thinking, and all of that, including like retirement homes and what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I think for now they are starting to realize there are other opportunities, but those things take time, right? So the immediate future I can see is that they're going to focus very heavily on how to enter the export market. If Pearl River could have 30%, maybe now they want 60%.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and they want to focus on the high end, the so-called hand-built models, like the Kaiserberg, like certain Ritz Miller pianos, and they are going to do away with the very popular, but very entry-level type models, because the profit margins on those are,
Slimmer.
very slim. So they need to find a way to survive. That means they need to generate more profit, even with lesser quantities. But there is a formula, and we test marketed in the U.S. successfully already. So I'm hoping Chairman Lee will now listen to me a bit more often. Chairman Lee, you listening?
Appealing to the American
Yeah.
market. Yeah.
But there is a way to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The second thing, of course, is to enhance and develop further the brand. We cannot forever be relegated to, a Chinese brand.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as whether it's Chinese brand or this brand or that brand.
Yeah.
Because actually we make for the world.
Yeah.
Because even with the big name here, we make their pianos too. So you cannot say, it's Chinese this and that.
Yeah.
And many people agree with me. I'm very grateful for that. But I think Pearl River themselves have to kick in a little bit more effort. Not that they are not. They didn't realize how time is of the essence, because the company really should position itself as the piano for the world. That's
Bravo.
the brand.
Yeah. So that would be your brand shift if it were up
exactly.
to you. Yeah.
Right.
How could you see yourself creating Pearl River as the brand of the world?
Well, the fact that we are now in over 112 countries, and then regardless of religion or cultural background or history, people welcome our product, right? But in the past, we were a little bit more passive. That means we know people like our product, so we wait for the orders.
Yeah.
And we rarely go to them and say, let me create something to fit into your culture, your preferences, I think we need to be more proactive now. We need to invest more in those foreign markets. We have to have more partners that we can work closely together. And overall, we also need to be in touch with the local technicians. Not just Pearl River, I can see all across is that people really don't think about that, which is kind of weird,
Yeah.
But you really have to,
Yeah.
And I don't mean just like, once a year we do a PTG, we have a booth, No,
Yeah.
I'm talking really proactively seek out like-minded technicians. Or I always told Pearl River, I said, one of the best things you could do is to invite technicians to come to Guangzhou. And they see what we are doing, and it will be very, very exciting to get the exchange, sharing of knowledge, and then you have friends, You have friends all over the world, you see.
Yeah.
So we're trying our best to speed things up that way.
Yeah. That does give me a great segue because I wanted to learn more about Chinese technicians. What does the process look like over there? How do technicians seek education? And how do you expect manufacturers to be able to elevate the status of the technician?
Thank you for that. There are many ways you can get into becoming a piano technician. You could even learn in music school.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, in music school, they have a department that you can sign up to be trained as a piano technician. And then that is linked to a factory like Pearl River for apprenticeship. It's already been there for many years.
Yeah.
Because you have to cater to about 20,000 a month. You need a lot of technicians, right?
Yeah.
So it's the real deal over there because back then the demand was so high, But it's also proof that if you have the fundamental infrastructure, you could change things drastically to make it even better. Because even in Southeast Asia, like Singapore, very sophisticated city, but no training whatsoever for technicians. So you end up with many technicians who are actually only able to do tunings. And not really good ones either, because they don't have the chance to practice, you know. And it's sad because you have a high level demand for concerts, for customer. Actually, 65% of the population plays pianos, you know.
That's wild.
And then you have almost zero for technicians.
Yeah.
Because somebody there did not link up the whole thing to say technicians are the most important people for your operation here, you know.
Yeah.
So we'd like to see if we can support and help them, because I have clients in Singapore.
Yeah.
I have clients in Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand. They all have the same problems. They are willing to invest in great pianos, but they forgot to invest in technicians.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
what do you feel is the least understood professional or cultural difference between technicians in Southeast Asia versus the rest of the world?
I think in Southeast Asia, technicians are viewed as just a laborer. There's no understanding of the complexity, the sophistications of managing a piano due to some of the reasons I just discussed with you. But also, it has never been supported by the higher learning institution. For example, in China, the universities, they all have a segment where they could train technicians. They have music school, and part of it is a technical coursework for technicians. And they get great master technicians to host that segment. So the practical side and the theoretical sides are very well blend together.
Yeah.
And so the technicians, when they come out, they can explain to you the whole structure of the piano, and not like, oh, I don't deal with this part, so let's not talk about that, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really a pleasure to talk to the technicians in China, you know. They could really carry on a great discussion with you. Even if you try to just explain to them certain part of the piano, I need a voice, you know, up or down, or action is a bit sluggish here and this and that, you know, because of course I oversimplify this by just saying this. But anyway, it's great. They know and they spot on right away.
So do you see a future program or certification or any way that Southeast Asia might be able to give more status and respect to the technician community?
Yeah, I started a program already, but it's going to take everybody involved to make sure it could stay on, it could be built up, and it could become a real effective coursework for that. The dealers, but also the local educational branch should really consider getting involved in that. So, for example, nowadays, if I work with a university or a school, you know, or even a performing arts center, I will always propose there is a parallel program for technicians.
Yeah.
Because if you buy my piano and nobody tune it,
Yeah.
or couldn't handle it, then everybody's in trouble, you know.
So what are some other ways that you hope to see the entire industry, maybe even the global industry, change for the better in future decades?
I would like to encourage everybody to think of how we can best practice this business. For example, if you have a piano store, what type of employees you're going to have? If you have good employees, would you do your best to keep that person? Or technicians, you know? Because based on my very humble experience, I run a store of several stores and all that. And I'm not bragging, but I just want to state the fact that when I take over an area, I'm always being given the worst case scenario.
I imagine that's good business strategy.
I would say at least it's good training, you know. And then, for example, when I was in Bellevue, my first store, I took over, it was doing only $800,000 a year. And then 3.5 years later, I was doing $4 million in the same location. And in Singapore, they were doing like 8 to maybe 12 pianos Steinway a year. And they've been doing it for 60 years. And they were selling mostly upright pianos.
Oh,
you know.
Lordy. Okay.
So I took over, and then the first 9 months, we did 48 pianos. And mostly the Ds and the Bs and the grand pianos, right? So it's a different approach.
Yeah.
But nobody takes me seriously because they always say, Leng, you're just lucky.
So then your strategy would be to assume the worst and invest in the technicians.
My strategy would be assuming that I'm always going to be lucky.
Okay.
No, just joking.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, in a way you have to think of a comprehensive operation. I see mistakes and things like that made by many corporations and big dealer groups. They only focus on the sales. And I was told by directors or owners, we're not interested in marketing, it's a waste of time. I just go get the sales. And I'm going to say, how do you get the sales when you don't have marketing? I have not found a successful operator that could just do that. Fundamentally, I think a lot of operators forgot that their predecessor already did a lot of marketing for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They forgot that.
Yeah.
It's still there, but it's becoming weaker and weaker and weaker because the current or the future operator did not think it's essential anymore.
Yeah.
So the effect wears off after maybe 2 or 3 generations.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're a sitting duck. You're just sitting there wondering why nobody buys my products.
Yeah.
Well, because you're not connecting all to the right people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't go out to prospect, to cultivate. You have to cultivate your market all the time.
What are your top marketing tips for dealers or technicians who are struggling to make themselves known?
I think number one, you have to choose your path that you believe. Don't do what people think or tell you or you think people want you to do. You have to say, this is not for me, but this other way is for me.
Yeah.
Right? You choose the merchandise too. You really have to choose what you believe in. I never sell something that I don't believe. Actually, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I have no choice.
That was a tip I heard in sales, is that if you believe in something, it makes everything else a lot easier.
Then you have to know why you believe it.
Yeah.
Because people will want to engage you to ask you. You cannot say, oh, I just like it.
Yeah.
That's not enough, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to do your research. You have to study it. Just like any subject matter that if you're serious about it, you should know it like, your fingertips. Let me tell you one thing. I never sleep, because my brain is always working. Because I think about something and this and that, and sometimes it's quite annoying, but sometimes the reason I could talk a lot about the subject that mattered to me is because I really care about it. Mm-hmm. And if you care about it, then you constantly want to go back to say, what are the details and can I improve it?
Yeah.
You protect this entity, like your own children.
Yeah.
You don't just say, oh, I know already, don't go away, and I just want the sales. It doesn't work like that, right?
Yeah.
And also technicians, I will encourage them to practice their crafts because you are so important to the community. But you also want to communicate with the sales force because these two parties have to work together. Because you have to educate them to know why technical works are important, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll give you a funny story, which is real. Is in Southeast Asia, many times I go into a retail shop and I say, why is this piano completely out of tune? They were so defensive. They're like, oh, no, it should be fine. I say, no, you cannot hear it. That's your problem. But I'm telling you, it's out of tune. Then they say, but we just tuned it 3 months ago. You know what I mean? Because I don't know who trained them or told them, you only need to tune the piano twice a year or once a year, So 3 months ago, we just tuned it. It should be fine, They don't understand this thing is an organic being, that it will change overnight, On and on and on. So it's really lack of communication from the technicians. But I'm not pointing fingers at the technician because a lot of times the technicians were not being sought out as the advisor. Mm-hmm. They were being treated as a laborer because in Southeast Asia, oh, you're working with your hands, so you're just a laborer.
Yeah.
And we don't need to talk to you, That's really completely wrong, you see. So I will also tell the sales force, you need to know your technicians. Mm-hmm. And you need to know if this is a good technician or not.
Yeah.
So a lot of work needs to be done.
Yeah.
So actually the business, I'm very optimistic about this business. But I will have to tell people, if you look at a situation where you have really unqualified operator, then you should not blame the market. It's not the market.
Right.
It's you.
I wanted to circle back to something that you said earlier, which I loved, which was you were talking about people who end up in the industry and how everybody should know why they're in the industry and should be asking themselves constantly why they're here.
Mm-hmm. They also have to ask themselves, do you really like this industry?
Yeah.
Or are you here for other reasons,
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's all the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
I'm not taking this lightly and make it a joke. I'm not. But I wanted to say it's almost become funny to me when I think about it. All this time for 33 years, I see it happen every day. Some other industry, the people who are engaged they have to go through a lot of qualification to get hired for that. Well, we don't have that process.
Yeah.
So we have to be very self-disciplined to say, we want to make sure this is the right team that I have. Otherwise, it's such a waste of opportunity.
Yeah.
I told my technical people at the factory, I said, if we as the marketing and sales team did not do a good job for you, we're being very disrespectful of your hard work because it makes such a beautiful product. And yet we're like, throw it away or, misrepresent the whole thing.
Well, one thing I love about PIPA is the attitude of uniting the whole industry and all the stakeholders, the teachers, the technicians, the dealerships, manufacturers, and everything. So do you have top dreams or aspirations or final words that you want to say about uniting the industry and how important it is?
Thank you for asking. I will only say one thing. We have to work together. This industry has to be on united front because we're doing tremendous public service for education, for the schools, for the children, family, for the well-being of,
For the soul.
For the soul
of the world, yeah.
I mean, this is sacred work, actually. And we should put away all the petty little differences, this and that. Fundamental is about providing good musical experience and helping people engage in musical making. And then also, we want to preserve this heritage.
Yeah.
This is an important thing.
Yeah.
You think about who doesn't listen to music. For those who tell me the industry is suffering, I say you better go back and look at it again. You don't tell me oxygen is not important. So music is important. It's the same. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Even you sit in the car, you turn on the music.
That's a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
I typically ask one final question to wrap up these interviews.
Sure.
What is your favorite thing about the piano industry? Yeah.
Okay, why I'm still here, I'm always being attracted to it. That's not a boring day, is that this is really a people business.
Yeah.
And you're doing a public service. We shall never forget that.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, Leng, thank you for joining us. You've been a fantastic guest.
Thank you for having me.
Another huge thank you to Gazelle for sponsoring this episode and to Leng for joining us at the PIPA convention. If you'd like to learn more about the instruments or history of Pearl River, the world's best-selling piano, you can check out Pearl River USA, Rittmuller USA, or KaiserbergUSA.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you tune into our next episode. Till next time.